Hi friends, welcome back. This is Holly here at the South Texas Skillet, and today we're going to make a very quick chicken parmesan pasta. This is going to come together in under 30 minutes. I have had a pretty busy day. I've been out of the house all day, and so we need something that's going to be quick. All of my kids are hungry, and so this is what I decided to make. All right, so you're going to start with some diced chicken. This is cut into about 1-inch pieces, maybe a little bit smaller. And to that, we're just going to add some salt and pepper. Just enough to taste. And then some garlic powder. Onion powder. Some paprika. And some cayenne. Cayenne's optional. You don't have to add it in, but we tend to like it. Okay, and you're going to give this a good mix and get all of those pieces coated well. Then I'm going to set it aside while we get our butter in the pot and start getting that melted. All right, let me get this cleaned up and I'll be right back. All right, to our pot, we're going to add in 2 tablespoons of butter. You do want to use a fairly large pot for this because we're going to cook everything in there, including the pasta. So it's a 1-pot meal. So make sure you have something that's going to be big enough to hold the meat, the sauce, and the pasta all at one time. All right, once your butter has melted, go ahead and add in some of your chicken. Depending on how much you have, you're probably going to want to put in half of it in the pan. That way it doesn't crowd the pan. You want to be able to sear all of the chicken on all sides, and if you crowd the pan, you can't do that. All I'm doing right now is just getting it spread out. It's a little bit clumped together. So that way each piece touches the bottom. And then we're going to cook it for 3 to 4 minutes until it's done and there's a nice caramelized color to it. And then we'll pull it out and put it on a plate. All right, once your chicken is done and it has some nice browning to it, you're gonna pull it out and just put it on a plate. This does not need to be a paper towel lined plate, just a regular plate is fine. It's gonna release some juices and you can pour those juices back into the pasta once it's done. That's gonna give it a lot of flavor. All right, we're gonna add in the rest of the chicken. If you need more butter in the pan, you can add it at this time. I would add it before you added the chicken. We don't need any more butter yet. Okay, and again, I'm just gonna let that saute for about 3 to 4 minutes and we'll pull it out. All right, so it is getting a little bit dry. That's okay, I'm just gonna add about probably a tablespoon of butter just to keep those spices from burning on the bottom of the pan too bad. You could also use olive oil if you wanted to, but butter just tastes so much better. All right, so this is done. I'm gonna go ahead and pull it out. All right, and you're gonna see quite a bit of brown stuff in the bottom of your pan. That's perfectly fine. In fact, You want that. It's going to give you a lot of good flavor. We're going to add another 1.5 tablespoons or so of butter. Add however much you think you need. Just letting it melt just a bit, and then I'm going to add in my onion. This is a sweet onion. You can use a yellow onion if you want to. Our store just had some nice Vidalia onions. We don't always have them, and so when we do, I try to grab them up. So there are the Vidalia onions, are a sweet onion from Georgia, and they're only available for a certain time of year, and you can't always find them, even in the time frame that they're available for. And they're only grown in a certain part of Georgia, and so, you know, the demand's really high and the supply is low, so it's very hard to find them, especially this far from Georgia. But I found some and bought a bag. So I'm gonna add this in. Right now, all I'm doing is trying to scrape up the brown bits from the bottom of the pan onto my onions. This is gonna give the onions very good flavor, and it's gonna keep all that stuff from really burning to the bottom. So you're gonna let these onions saute for about 3 minutes or so, just until they start to soften up. If they start to caramelize a little bit, then that's good. If not, just make sure they're nice and soft and transparent. My heat is on a medium-low, so it's not too high. I don't want to burn the onions. It's going to give a very bitter flavor, so don't burn them. Cook them low and slow. If they caramelize, it's good. If not, as long as they're transparent, you're going to be just fine. And again, I'm just working on all these brown bits that are on the bottom and the sides of the pan as I'm cooking these onions. So as they cook, they release water that helps that come up off of the pan. And that's when you want to scrub that stuff up with your spatula and add that flavor into your food. Do not salt your onions at this point. If you salt them, they release too much water. So I'm just gonna let them cook in the butter and whatever seasoning was in the bottom of the pan. I'm not gonna salt them at all. All right, our onions are just about done. So I'm gonna add in our garlic to our onions. You don't remove them at this point. And just cook these for about 30 seconds, no more than a minute, until they're nice and fragrant. Never ever add your garlic with your onions. If you do that, then the garlic cooks way too fast and it burns. All right, once you start to really smell that garlic, then you know it's done. I never really time it. I just go off of how it smells. And I can smell it very well. So I'm gonna go ahead and add in a jar of marinara sauce. This is 24 ounces. I'm gonna add the whole jar. All right, so when you're adding in your marinara sauce, you want to look at the ingredients to make sure that there's nothing extra added into the sauce. Try to buy a higher quality marinara if you can. If you can't, whatever you can buy is just fine. I do try to buy stuff that doesn't have a lot of preservatives or anything extra other than the tomatoes and the spices needed to make the product. Once you put it in, you're going to give it a good stir, and then we're going to fill this jar up to the top with water. So you want a full jar of the marinara plus a full jar of water. All right, we're gonna add this jar of water. And then at this point, I'm gonna add in some Italian seasoning. It is optional. It will make it taste good. So my son said if you add in the Italian seasoning, it's gonna make it taste great. So add in some. I'll give it a little bit extra flavor. You could also add in fresh basil to this if you wanted to. If you did, I wouldn't do it yet. I would wait until closer to the end. But that's also a good option. Fresh parsley is a good option. Again, if you're doing the fresh herbs, for some of those more tender fresh herbs like parsley or basil, you want to do them at the end of the cook time. I don't have any, so we're not doing any. All right, I'm just giving this a good mix to make sure I didn't forget any of those nice brown bits or the fond from the bottom of the pot. And then we're gonna bring this up to a boil and then reduce the heat to a simmer. So I'm gonna turn it up a bit to get it to a boil. Once it comes to a boil, we'll reduce it to a simmer and give it about 2 or 3 minutes at a simmer before we move on to the next step. All right, once your sauce is boiling, turn it down to a simmer and just let it simmer for a couple of minutes. All right, once this has simmered for a bit, you're going to add in a full 16 ounces of pasta. This is the rotini pasta. So you can use any short pasta that you like or any small pastas that you like that are about this size. Penne pasta works really well. We're just going to use the rotini today. I'm adding in the entire bag. This is 16 ounces. Okay, and then to that, you're also going to add in your chicken and all of those juices that might have accumulated in the bottom of your plate. Make sure to get those in. And give this a good stir. And then you're going to cover it with a lid. Now take a look at it though and make sure that it doesn't need any more liquid. I feel like mine's a little bit thick, so we're going to add maybe a cup or so of water. Okay, I'm going to get a cup and pour it in. Perfect. So when you're cooking, a lot of times it's very hard to give you exact measurements or the exact ingredients or anything like that because it's very subjective. Baking is a different story, but cooking is very subjective. A lot of it has to do with your altitude or other factors. If you let your sauce simmer a little bit too long, you might need to add in more water. If you add more noodles than I do or more pasta than I do, you might need to add in more water. It really just depends on your situation. And so what you should do is just get in your kitchen and just try. Just cook. Just have fun with it. Just try it. See what works best for you and your family. And I promise you it's going to be great. All right. What I'm going to do now is let this come up to a simmer again, and then we're going to cover it with a lid. And then we're going to cook it for about 10 minutes. I'm going to stir it every so often just to make sure those pasta noodles don't stick to the bottom of the pan. Try to keep it covered as much as possible. It helps keep the moisture inside of the dish. All right, once your pasta is done, you're gonna notice that that sauce is nice and thick. We are gonna add about 1/4 cup of mozzarella cheese, and then we also need to add some Parmesan to this as well. I need to shred some into it, so give me just 1 second. All right, so I'm just gonna shred in some Parmesan cheese into this. Oop. So I did have a nice big clump of it fall in, but that's okay. We're just gonna break that up and mix it in. We just want this to melt into the dish. Okay. Give it a good mix. Let that cheese get nice and melty. It's gonna take a little bit longer now that we have those bigger clumps in there, but that's okay. All right, so once you get your cheese melted into the sauce, you have 2 options. Option 1 is to make this a true one-pot meal and to put more mozzarella cheese on top, put the lid back on it, and let it melt. Option 2 is to add it to another baking dish, which is what we're going to do today, because we like to serve our food on the table in baking dishes like this. And so we're gonna add it to a baking dish, add the cheese on top, and just pop it in the oven for a couple of minutes until that cheese melts. It does not take long to do that extra step. You just have to decide if you want to do the extra dishes or not. If you don't want to do the extra dishes, just do it in here. The only downside to that is when you're serving it, not everybody's going to get a cheese topping. But if you do it in a baking dish, this is a 9x13, then you can ensure everybody's going to have some of that cheese on top. Come on. Okay, so we're just going to put that in there, spread it out a little bit. You can grease this if you want to, but it's not going to be baking in it so long that I'm not going to be afraid that it's going to stick to the sides of the pan. Okay. And now I'm going to add some more mozzarella to the top. Okay, and then to the mozzarella, I'm also going to add some Parmesan. This is a chicken Parmesan dish, so the more Parmesan, the better. Hopefully, a piece of it doesn't break off, but I don't think it will now. Usually it's just the tip of it that does that. Perfect. And then we're going to add this into the oven. It's set at 350, and it's only going to take a few minutes. All right, after about 5 minutes or so in the oven, our pasta is done. I'm just going to serve up a little bit. Now, if you had some fresh parsley, you can put it on top, and that would be great. I don't have any, so we're not going to add it to the top. That's just fine. All right, let's give it a try. Now, this is something that we make fairly often, It is a very quick meal, something my family loves. Let's try it. It has all of the comforting flavors of chicken Parmesan, but it takes way less time, and it's a perfect weeknight meal. And I promise you, your kids are gonna love it. If you would like a perfect dessert to pair with this meal, please click the link right here. And if you could like and subscribe my content, I would greatly appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one.